Hi and welcome to this session. So here in this session we are going to discuss about weight corrosion from unit 6 corrosion science. The learning outcome from this session will be students should be able to define weight corrosion and students should explain different types of weight corrosion. Now what is weight corrosion? So the word itself tells us that the corrosion occurs in presence of aqueous condition or high amount of moisture. So when a metal or two different metals are in contact with each other and further they are contact with an electrolytic solution, then there is a formation of anodic and cathodic regions on this metal surface and the corrosion occurs. Such type of corrosion which takes place due to the presence of an electrolytic solution and leading to the formation of anodic and cathodic region, the corrosion is called as a weight corrosion. So in short, corrosion of a metal due to presence of an electrolytic solution with formation of anodic and cathodic areas on the metal surface. Here, in case of weight corrosion, the anodic area will undergo corrosion while the corrosion process will not affect the cathodic area. The anodic area after corrosion will either dissolve into the electrolytic solution or will get deposited on the cathode due to the process of corrosion. The weight corrosion may occur either due to the formation of short circuited galvanic cell or by formation of differential aeration cell, and hence there are two types of weight corrosion. First is called as a galvanic cell corrosion and second is called as a concentration cell corrosion or differential aeration corrosion. As weight corrosion takes place due to the formation of electrochemical cell, it is also called as a electrochemical corrosion. Now we will discuss about the first type of weight corrosion, that is the galvanic cell corrosion. When the metal surface comes in contact with an electrolytic solution and there is a formation of anodic and cathodic region on the metal surface, then there will be a formation of a galvanic cell and the corrosion occurring due to this formation of galvanic cell is called as a galvanic cell corrosion. The galvanic cell corrosion occurs by three ways. So the formation of galvanic cell takes place by three situations. First is the contact between two dissimilar metal. Second is stressed and unstressed part on the same metal, and third is the presence of impurities in the metal. So we will discuss these three situations one by one. First is the contact between two dissimilar metal. When two dissimilar metal are in contact with each other and further they come in contact with an electrolytic solution, aqueous media, then there is a formation of a anodic and cathodic metal. The metal which is placed higher in the galvanic series will act as the anode, while the metal which is placed lower in the galvanic series will act as a cathode. And further, anodic metal will undergo corrosion in case of a two dissimilar metal in contact between each other. So in this case, the metal which is acting as anode will undergo corrosion. For example, tap of brass fitted to stainless steel act as an anode and will undergo corrosion. Second situation is the stress and unstressed parts on the same metal. So working on the metal disturb the grain structure of metal. Work part of the metal is under stress and act as anode. Here work part means the part of the metal which is either bent or hammered or some kind of working is carried out on that part of the metal, just like drilling, then either bending or hammering, any such kind of work which deform the grain structure will be called as a worked part of the metal, and such work part of the metal will be under stress and will act as a anode, while unworked part of the metal will be unstressed and act as a cathode. For example, threaded part of the pipe, bent part of the rod or plate will act as an anode and will undergo corrosion. The next part is the impurities present in the metal. Here, improper alloying of the metal or presence of certain impurity on the metal leads to the formation of a tiny galvanic cell on the metal surface. So in presence of aqueous media, the tiny galvanic cell formation will take place, and depending on the position of this impurity in the galvanic series, anode and cathode formation will take place, and such kind of galvanic cell will lead to the formation of small pits on the metal. Now, second type of cell is the concentration cell corrosion. So first is the galvanic cell formation and leading to the galvanic cell corrosion, and second is the concentration cell corrosion, which is due to the formation of a concentration cell. Now the concentration cell is nothing but the cell formed due to the varying oxygen concentration or varying electrolyte concentration on the metal surface are called as a differential aeration cell, and corrosion occurring due to the formation of differential aeration cell is called as a differential aeration corrosion. Here the same metal surface come in contact with the electrolytic solution which is having difference in the concentration of either oxygen or either electrolyte solution, and here the part of the metal in contact with less concentration of oxygen, lower concentration of the electrolyte acts as anode, while the part of metal which is in contact with high concentration of oxygen or high concentration of electrolyte will act as a cathode. And as we know that always anodic part of the metal undergoes corrosion. The concentration cell formation takes place by four ways. First is the partial immersion of the metal. Second is the partial burial of the metal in the ground. Third is the partial rupturing in the oxide film on the metal surface, and fourth is the presence of crevices on the metal. Now we will discuss one by one. So when the metal is partially immersed in the aqueous media, then part of the metal will be in contact with the aqueous media or the water, and the part of the metal will be exposed to the atmosphere. So here the partially immersed metal in aqueous solution leads to the formation of a concentration cell, and the part of the metal in solution is poorly oxygenated and will act as a anode. That means the part of the metal which is exposed to the atmosphere or the air will act as a cathode due to the higher concentration of oxygen. Example is ship, water in metal tank, metallic installation in water, and water drop on the metal. So the part of the ship or the part of the metal tank which is in contact with the water will undergo corrosion, while rest of the part will not undergo corrosion here. Second is the partial burial of the metal in the ground. When the metal is partially buried in the ground, then in that case the underground part of the metal is in contact with the less amount of oxygen and will act as the anode, and the part of the metal which is exposed to the air will be in contact with higher concentration of oxygen and will act as a cathode, and there will be a formation of a concentration cell. So the part of the metal which is buried will undergo corrosion, while the part of the metal which is exposed to air will not undergo corrosion. Next is the partial rupture of the oxide film on the metal surface. When there is a metal surface covered with the oxide film and this oxide film is ruptured due to the wear and tear. Now in this case the part of the metal which is under crack, which is having ruptured metal oxide film, will be more oxygenated and will act as a cathode, while the part of the metal which is having metal oxide on its surface will be less oxygenated and will act as a anode and will undergo further corrosion. Next way of concentration cell corrosion is the presence of crevices. Now when there is a presence of crevice on the metal surface, that means either certain part of the metal which is having bent, certain kind of joint is there or soldering is there or certain kind of fitting is there on the metal surface, then there will be a presence of certain gaps and that will be called as a crevices. And when there is a presence of crevices on the metal, then the metal part under crevice are less oxygenated while rest of the metal part is more oxygenated, and hence the part of the metal under crevices will act as a anode and rest of the part will act as a cathode, and the corrosion will occur due to the formation of a concentration cell or differential aeration cell. So in summary, we have discussed about definition of wet corrosion, then we have discussed about types of wet corrosion, that is galvanic cell and concentration cell corrosion, and further we have discussed about ways of galvanic corrosion. So finally, thank you for watching this session.